I remember once I presented a paper between a comparison between Tamil literature and French literature, and Dr. Balasubramanian was there in the conference. After the conference, we all were having IT here, and he approached me with a smile and he said that you are French or Tamil? I was surprised. Yeah. People don't distinguish me like proper Tamil, but I said, no, sir, I'm Tamil. Oh, okay, your paper was very nice. We were interested in discussing it. So that was the last conversation I had with him, and after that I never saw him. I saw him once with Professor Aravindan and him taking photocopies of Pugazhendhi also, which he was translating from Sanskrit to Aravindan. So I have these fond memories about him. So when Professor Aravindan called me to present this paper, I made it a point that despite all other works I have, I will definitely do this to honor the person who named me as French, who gave me the title as French. So I should thank him also for his translation. So I find this paper, I find this essay I have written on it is mainly not about studying the formulas and the translations and the differences between the original text and the translations, but it also has some suggestions at the end to give you a constructive critique about the work. To start with, I would like to say that Tolkāppiyam is first of all is an observation-based study of the language and not alone a book of rules or grammar treaty. That is a misconception many people have, that it's a book that only enumerates the rules of grammar, but it doesn't give any observation-based descriptive study of the language. Because modern linguistics say that study of any language should be observation-based. Observation-based means it should be descriptive in nature, not prescriptive in nature. So they accuse that Tolkāppiyam is giving only rules and how it should be, but it doesn't say much about how it is. But in many instances, the author says that this is how it is being in usage, and I am mentioning it here really. So which means he only observed, he doesn't say only rules. Rules are also there, but it also has a major part which is also observation based. So it is having a lot of elements that are common with the modern linguistics study. Yet it was written almost 20 centuries ago. It still has the elements of the modern linguistics. So this is the next slide. Can you go? Yeah, I'm going to present about the translation of this particular chapter, Uvamaviyal, which means comparison, simile, parable, allegory, analogy, etc., etc., metaphor. You can't put the translation into one single word. It has a lot of meanings in it. It's a word rich in meanings, and if you want to translate it into a single term, it's not possible. So if you divide that very term into two parts, Uvamai and Iyal, Uvamai which means comparison, simply, but Iyal is still another word which is rich in its meaning. So Iyal is a term used to mean a scientific study of something. That's why you have in school Uyiriyal, Iyarviyal, Vediyal, Ariviyal, Ulaviyal, Nunnuyiriyal, microbiology. It is almost the equivalent of ology in English, which means the scientific study of something. Which is why in the beginning I said that Tolkāppiyam is not only a book that enumerates the rules, but it is also a scientific study of the language. So this is why the term Iyal is often used to designate the chapters also and divisions. Again, this word Iyal has three meanings in it, which is first of all domain, chapter, category, field, and again the very nature of something, Iyal, the nature of a phenomenon, and the study of a phenomenon, the scientific study of a phenomenon. So these three meanings cannot be conveyed again in the translation. So there are divisions of meanings, and only one part of that meaning can be translated. It is not any You can't accuse anybody for this because one language has a term that is called an umbrella term. They say, in French we call it mot valise, which means it has a lot of meanings in it and only one part of that meaning can be translated. If you want to give a complete translation of that word, you have to translate it into 10 words, which is not possible also. So the translation of that topic is that Upama Prakaran means the chapter on comparison or simile, we can say. So the first formula which Professor Sinha also presented now, there are 4 types of categories of comparison: Kriya, Pariniti, Roop or Rang. रूप और रंग, इन 4 वर्गों में प्रकटित वो है उपमा. So action, result, form and color. But he doesn't speak much about color. Roop or rang, they are considered together as form. And he gives examples of classic Tamil literature, from Sangam literature mainly. And I think Dr. Balasubramaniam has taken many comments into consideration, and he has taken the appropriate examples that he wanted to add in his translation. So he first gives the transliteration, phonetical transcription of the Tamil text examples, and then he gives the translation of the same in Hindi. So first he says Puli Pola Paindan, which is written in Hindi, and again he gives Wo Baki Tara Chapta. So he jumped like a tiger. And again, this is the first category, which is Kriya, which is action. And second one is Marianna Igai, which is translated as Varsha Sadrashya Dan. And third one is Varayanna Yadi, and which is translated as Chatan ke saman khati. Chatan is written, spelling mistake in it. No, I couldn't type in Hindi. And fourth category, which is color, is like Pavala Manna Y, which is Praval Munga Sadrashya Mu. These are the 4 categories. But what I found is that where did he find these examples? Because I know that he has taken from other literature, but even the examples written in Tamil are not from exactly the way it was written in other parts like Purananuru, Agnanuru or Kurundugai, but he has translated them within Tamil language first. He took the text, original text, which is mainly given in the next slide. We will come back to this. No, another one. So if you look at these examples, he has taken them from some other classical work, and then he translated them within Tamil language in a simple Tamil, from classical Tamil to simple Tamil, and then he translated them into Hindi. So there are 2 translations. One is intralingual translation, which he did within the language, because when you translate the language in the same language, it is intralingual or intralinguistic. Again, he did an interlinguistic translation into Hindi. So in order to make it understandable for the target audience or readership, he did twice the translation job, which we can't notice because we think that he directly took the examples from some comments written and he directly translated them. It is not possible because I found the original examples. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. See, Varai Anna Yane is the example he gives. But the original text is Varai Purayum Mada Kalitrin Misai. He has taken the word Kaliru, but he has given the simple word, modern Tamil word Yane. And Varai Purayum, even Purayum is a word which you use to compare, but he used the word Anna, which is commonly used by Tolkappiya. And Varai Anna Yane is the retranslation of this text. And then he gives that example in the translation he did. So, Chatan Sadrashya Hati is not the direct translation of the examples given in terms. So, there were 2, actually it was a laborious work, so he did twice the job. He did much more than what he was paid for, but he was always ready to do it. So, can you go back to the previous slide? Again, we had... Second one. Yeah. In any comparison or any kind of simile, there are three parts. One is tenor and vehicle, which I think in Hindi we call Upameya and Upamana, and then the linking word between these two parts, which is called in Tamil Uvamaviyal. So there are more than 36, 38 words that are linking words, but mostly only 14 of them are found in even Sangam literature. So Tolkappiya is not only about Sangam literature, it also an observation-based study that includes the spoken language and what is commonly heard among the people. So this linking word as, like, than, which I have put in English, when Dr. Balasubramanian translates, he uses different linking words for each comparison. So you won't say that, baki tara chakka. That is like you have to, for action I have to use kitara, and then dan ke liye, ige ke liye he uses sadrashya. So these are the linking words, different linking words he uses. But I don't know whether he used it very consciously that it has to be for action I have to use this particular linking word, and for color and form I have to use a different linking word, or for comparing the quality of some other level I have to use a different. He has used common register also. Like Chattan Jaise Hathi is also somewhere there. So he takes the same examples, but he keeps changing the linking words as per the understanding level of the readers. Like anybody can read and understand. It's not that only you have to be a scholar, you can be a common reader and you can read and understand also. So please move ahead. Yeah, these are the number of linking words we have in Tolkappiya. As I said, only 14 of them can be found even in classical literature. The rest of them, either they came later or they were also well in usage, but not in written form, but in spoken form also. So it is also an observation-based study which did not take into consideration only the written literary works, but also non-written forms of language was also taken into account. Another, next. Again, there is a subdivision of comparison: superiority, beauty, love, and heroism. Here I find it slightly intriguing because the translation says Utkrishta, which is superiority, and Sundarta, which is beauty, and Prem, which is love, or Veerta, which is heroism or bravery. So these are the four words he categorizes with the translation. So we think that these are the four categorizations. And then he gives the example below, Ariman Anna Anangudai Tupi, which is he translated into Bhayanak Parakram Singh ke saman tha, which means Parakram is not exactly the word of Veerta, because Veerta is different and Parakram is about strength and Veerta is about bravery. You need not be strong to be brave. And if you are strong, it doesn't mean that you have to be brave also. So he uses the word, and below that he comments that ye parakram chet banta hai. So he himself gives the explanation that it comes under the area of parakram, but which is not there in the main translation. So instead of Veerta, he could have used parakram either that, or he could have used an example which suits to the Veerta here. But the change of these two words slightly changes that, whether Veerta and Parakram are same or Parakram comes under the category of Veerta. So somewhere we are like intrigued about the translation. You can go ahead. So he gives example of beauty also, Kanpurvar. He takes this and he explains this. One of the examples he gives, normally he gives the simple transliteration. But here he gives the transliteration in quotes and he gives other explanations which are his own comments to explain the example. So बच्चों के बारे में कहते हैं, कहा जाता है, ये कहा जाता है, नयन सदृश्य प्यारे हैं. So that means beautiful eyes, kids with beautiful eyes. This is an example he took from some other work, but he modified it. And if you see, it is about a lady talking about his man with whom she is in love. Kanpol Urvanulan. It's not about the kid or infant. It's about love between man and woman. Because the main categories, subcategories he used is that love and heroism. And it's not simply affection and heroism, but he talks more about affection than love. But I understand that he wanted somewhere to convert it into age appropriate, and it doesn't need to be always about love between man and woman. It can be affection also. So Kanpol Urunulan is about talking about a man, but he gives that only Kanpol Var, and then it explains it as a metaphor or an example comparison you use to talk about kids. And again, to talk about the form, most of the comments I have read, the example for the form, रूप के लिए क्या दिया जाता है? तुड़ीपोलुम इले. It's about a woman. The waist of a lady is as slim and slender as the next slide. As slim and slender as the musical instrument. This is the form comparison. रूप का उपमा है, which is mainly used in most of the comments. But he has replaced it with Chattan Sadrashya Hathi. So it's like, that is also another form, but he chose the one which is appropriate for all age groups rather than going for a particular age group. So that is a target-oriented approach in his mind, with which he chose the examples to illustrate the translation. At the same time, he modified the examples at the language level to make it understandable for everybody. Third example, which says that there is a fourth category of comparison in Tolkāppiyam, which talks about it's not always a lower thing about with the higher level. It can be something below also you can compare, but if it is appropriate. Previous slide. So the formula is like Aruvunungu Madiyat Mudaloli Karappa. बाल की सुंदरता सर द्वारा निकले जा रहे चंद्र के समान उजाल हो रही है. That means that the beauty of the hair is fading like the moon that is being devoured by the serpent. Here he means actually the example means like when the moon is devoured by two serpents which we have in astrology. We believe that Rahu and Ketu, they devour the moon. That's why we have Grahana and all these eclipses. So which we generally believe all over India, which is not explained much. He only talks about snake devouring the moon. But the idea behind is that it's a belief, and it's all over India, and we use it in astrology also to explain and predict certain things. So which he could have given in comments there. This is the reason why we say this. Because this is something common between Tamil culture as well as the North Indian culture, where both have astrology and both believe in such things. So that could have been explained. So overall what I believe is that examples are well taken from the original text of Tamil. Instead, if we had incorporate examples from Hindi literature itself, but translating only the main text into Hindi. So that would have been far more, wide-reached and widely accepted and easily understood production of, any form of translation or rewriting of Tolkāppiyam. So he has taken comments, and even the comments are from the original text, and he has worked a lot, and he could have, with the help of another, Hindi scholar, who might have helped him in giving examples from Hindi literature or even in Sanskrit literature, because I have read many similes in the next slide, in the Raghuvamsam of Kalidasa, like where he explains about how a deity enters inside the room of Kusha when he enters. Lava Kusha is the two sons of Ram, and Kusha becomes a king, and he goes for patrolling and comes back to his home. and he finds the goddess sitting in his room, and he asks, how could you enter in my room? Because the doors are shut and the windows are shut, and there is no entry point inside this room. And when nobody can enter in this, only you have entered in. And how could you? The way he says is that, like a mirrored object. Because the goddess has entered inside a room where there is no entry point, like the reflection that enters inside a mirror. So that is the comparison and simile he uses there. So it can't be given directly because it's in pure Sanskrit and nobody can read and understand very fast. And it has to be retranslated. Since he retranslated from Agananuru, Purananuru and Gurungagai, he could have retranslated from this also and given some examples. That would have been even more interesting for the target audience. Why I am telling you is that translation is not for ourselves, it's always for the target audience, and you have to extend towards them to make them understand it. And another one I have given here, you can read and understand, if you can't, I can also. It is about the Swayamvar of Indumati. The princess walks with the garland in her hand, and she is going to put on one of the princes. And the princes are living, the kings and princes are in line. That is how Swayamvar is conducted. You all know that. Even in Tamil we have Swayamvar. So when she walks by, the moment she gets closer to a king, his face becomes brighter with the hope that she is going to put the garland on me. But the moment she moves away, his face becomes dull and dim, that he is not his choice, her choice, and it is going to be the next person. So this act of walking of the princess among the princes is like a man holding a torch in his hand and walking on the street. When you walk with the torch, the first house that comes closer to the torch is illuminated with the light of the torch. But when you move ahead, the house left behind becomes darker and dimmer. So that is how the faces of princes and kings became enlightened with hope and later became dimmer with the loss of hope when she was walking with the garland in her hands. So why I am telling you these examples is that we could have explored other possibilities of giving more examples, and of course he would have been there, and if had he been there, I would have had an argument with him also on this. And he is a person who is open to argument and he is always ready to discuss on such things. Unfortunately, he is not among us, and it's a Herculean task that has been achieved, and we have to honor him by conducting many more seminars on this translation. Thank you very much.